Welcome to today's video. Today I have a huge stack of books sitting next to me because we're going to be talking about all 21 books that I've read so far this year. I've been journaling and keeping track of them. I just finished one last night and I decided, why not do this video? I saw everybody do their mid-year wrap-ups and I'm really late to that, so we're not going to call it a mid-year wrap-up. We're just going to be talking about the 21 books that I've read so far this year, even though it's basically a mid-year wrap-up, but not really, because a mid-year wrap-up was supposed to get posted in June, but I didn't do that. Jeez, this stack of books is a monster. I'm gonna try and get through this stack as fast as I can because I don't want this video to be too long, so we're not gonna stall anymore and we're just gonna get right into it and start talking about these books. So the first book I read in 2023 was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Miss Sarah J. Maas. I love her so much. Like, this book was a 5 stars for me and I loved it so much. Like, I think about this book every single day of my waking life. Like, it is one of the only things that has ever brought me as much joy as I felt when reading it. Again, if you have a foot in the door to the reading world, you've probably heard of ACOTAR. It's everywhere. It's been everywhere for, I want to say, the past 2 years. I decided to pick it up and again, it was the best decision of my life. I've never really been into fantasy, but like, this is just something else. Like, I just love this book so much. I love Sarah J. Maas so much and I am just so excited to get into the rest of her series. Like, I cannot recommend this book enough. Next, I read The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I rated this book a 3.5 stars. This is a romance. This was my first book by Ali Hazelwood and I've heard so much about her writing. I actually loved it so much. Like, it was such a cute little rom-com and I really liked reading about a woman in STEM. Like, the main female character was so funny. I loved her friends. Like, I just loved everything about this romance. I think it was so cute and I really want to read another Ali Hazelwood book. I just haven't gotten around to it, but I love this one so much. It was a 3.5 stars and I definitely recommend it, especially if you just want like a quick, easy romance read. Like, literally so cute. I finished it in like 2 days. So good. Next, I had obviously read A Court of Mist and Fury. When I tell you, I was not expecting the plot twist in this story. Like, y'all, I tell y'all all the time, I'm easily bamboozled. I'm easily fooled with the plot twist in a story. I rated this one a 5 stars as well. Like, a lot of people say that this one is their favorite book out of the entire series and honestly, I'm not mad about it. Sarah J. Maas just is so good with putting all the details in and really making the reader feel like they know the characters, like they're friends with the characters, like they're going through these hardships with the characters, you know what I'm like. It's literally just so good. Highly recommend it. Like, you guys already know, like, I am recommending the ACOTAR series all day every day. Next, I obviously read A Court of Wings and Ruin. Again, a lot of people said A Court of Mist and Fury was their favorite out of every book in the series. In my opinion, I think ACOWAR is the best book in the series. Like, she's a thickie. Like, you could tell she's a thickie, but when I tell you, I just couldn't put it down. Like, I was so excited for every single page. Even the politics aspect of it kept me interested, kept me intrigued, and this was the book out of the entire series that made me absolutely freaking sob. I didn't think I was gonna cry over this series because I'm not a crier. I don't cry about books. Like, it's just not my thing. Like, I don't really resonate with characters that deeply. But every time I think about the part in this book that made me cry, it just makes me want to cry again. And I don't know if that's like concerning. Even now, like, talking about it, I'm like, read it. Next, I read Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I rated this one a 3.5 stars. First of all, the spice. Y'all know one thing about me is that I love me some spice. The spice in this book wasn't overdone and just the plot itself was there. Like, I love when a rom-com can have like a nice plot that doesn't only follow their romance, and I love that about it. Next, I read the second book in the Twisted series by Anna Huang. I don't really know how to say her last name. Hopefully I'm not butchering it. I gave this book a 2.5 stars. It wasn't a bad book. I just don't think it was for me personally. I've said this before, I don't think the forbidden love trope is for me. I understand that somebody has to find out for the sake of the plot to progress, but like I feel like there should be some sort of point in the story where we can be like, no, let's hold off. Let's, you know, try to keep this under wraps a little bit longer. And I wasn't really a fan of Rise's behavior throughout, especially considering the situation that they're in. At some points, he makes it really hard for her to like do what she needs to do. I just feel like there were certain points in the story where that could have been like alleviated a little bit. I don't know if that makes sense. Next, I read Set on You by Amy Lee. I enjoyed this book. This is about a plus size Fitstagrammer. It was enemies to lovers. It's not really that they were even enemies, they just didn't like each other. Overall, I gave it a 3 stars. I really liked the message overall behind it when it came to the aspect of her being a plus size Fitstagrammer. Again, the romance was cute, but I more so enjoyed it for that aspect of it. Learning how to love yourself when so many other people's opinions are trying to dictate how you feel about yourself. Learning how to navigate something like that, like that was the main part of it that I enjoyed the most. The romance for me was just a bonus. Next, I read Most of All You by Mia Sheridan. Mia Sheridan and Sarah J. Maas, they're like, yeah, they're up here all the time. I think about this book and others by Mia Sheridan all the time. Like, they're constantly swirling around in my brain. I gave Most of All You by Mia Sheridan a 5 stars. This book was so good. This is a romance and I loved it so much. I just think there's so much depth to Mia Sheridan's stories, and this is one that really sat heavy with me on my heart, but not in a bad way. It's not only about the romance. For the main female character, it's also a journey about self-discovery and healing and looking forward to a better future. And I just love this book so much. It has a special place in my heart again, right along with Archer's Voice. I just love Mia Sheridan, and there's something that's always gonna do it for me about a Mia Sheridan story, and I will always recommend her to you guys. The first book I read in April was Credence by Penelope Douglas. This was my first Penelope Douglas book. Reading this within itself was just so interesting to me. That's like the only thing I feel like I can say about it that properly describes like how I felt when I was reading it. I rated this a 3.5 stars. I'm still not sure if I would read anything by Penelope Douglas again, but in the moment, I was really enjoying reading this. Like, seeing the way that she writes her characters was a very interesting thing to me. I don't know if it's just in this story because it's supposed to be like set in sort of kind of the wilderness and stuff like that. I feel like she added a really animalistic quality to like her characters. But again, I couldn't have put it down if I wanted to because it was so interesting. I definitely, again, don't recommend it to everybody. This is not a book that is meant for everybody. Definitely, you know, check all the things you need to check before deciding to read this book. Next, I read Hooked by Emily McIntyre. I rated this a 3 stars. This is a Peter Pan Wendy / Hook retelling. I enjoyed it. I think it was a really fun, quick read, and just being able to see like how she spins the story to like give it that Disney feel, but it's still a dark romance is so funny. It was a mafia based romance and I really enjoyed that. I've been a fan of like mafia stories ever since my Wattpad days, so it was really fun to read something like that again. Next, I read Priest by Sierra Simone. This is about obviously a priest and a girl who are wanting to be together, and obviously they can't because he's a priest. This, like, obviously you can tell this is not like a huge book, and most of it, I would say 95% of it was spice. I'm all for spice. I love spice, but I also have to have some sort of plot because there was the forbidden love trope and there was also insta love. I'm not a fan of insta-love. I just feel like I wasn't able to connect with the characters because it was insta-love and because there was not really a plot. Overall, I gave this book a 2.5 stars. Again, if you want a quick, easy read with a lot of spice and you don't really care about, you know, plot and things like that, I definitely recommend this to you. Because, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the spice was spicy. I just needed a little bit more. Next, I read Five Survive by Holly Jackson. Holly Jackson is also the author of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and I love Holly Jackson. I think about A Good Girl's Guide to Murder on a daily basis. Like, I wake up and I think about it, I go to sleep and I think about it, I'm eating my dinner and I think about it because I just loved it so much. And so I picked up Five Survive. I think this might be one of the only other books she has out besides A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. It's about 6 teenagers who go on a trip for spring break and they end up breaking down in the middle of nowhere, and somebody is trying to get a secret out of them and they're threatening to kill them if the person who's hiding this secret doesn't give it up. I again love the way Holly Jackson writes her characters. She writes them in such a realistic way when it comes to life or death situations. It was action-packed the same way that A Good Girl's Guide to Murder was action-packed, but somewhat in a more like subtle way, if that makes sense. I was very surprised to see so much action packed into the plot of this story, especially because the whole time they were all reduced to one spot, one setting throughout the book, and it was really good. I loved it so much. Next, I read A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. This book, y'all, this was giving like BuzzFeed Unsolved. This was giving Bailey Sarian YouTube channel, like murder mystery makeup Mondays. Like, that's what this book was giving. I cannot recommend this book enough. This is such a good book. It's about a girl who grew up in the small town in Louisiana. 6 teenage girls in her town start to go missing, and then her dad confesses to the murders. Fast forward 20 years later, she's in a different town in Louisiana and the same thing again starts happening and everything just starts getting questioned. You're trying to figure this out along with her. Like, you're going through the steps, you're going through the motion, going through these realizations with her. Each realization just gets crazier and crazier and crazier, and I just can't tell you enough that this book is so freaking good. Even if you're good at guessing stuff, I feel like you will not see the ending coming. Next, I read King of Wrath by Anna Huang. This was my first CEO billionaire slash arranged marriage slash like forced proximity. When I tell y'all, I ate this shit the fuck up. Like, no crumbs left. Like, I was eating it up. I rated this book a 4 stars. Like, I just loved both the main characters, like the main male character and the main female character, and the character development was there. And that is like one of the big things for me. If there's no character development, I struggle through it. But throughout the entire book, there was just so much character development from both parties that it just made the book so much more enjoyable for me. And y'all know the whole like my wife thing, like, oh, my wife, like this book was giving me everything it needed to give. Like, I loved it so much. It was so good, and I literally cannot wait for the rest of the series. This is based off the 7 Deadly Sins. This one is the King of Wrath. She came out with King of Pride. I need to get it. Like, I'm so excited to read it. I believe this series is supposed to be like intertwined. Like, you don't have to read this series as a whole. You can read them as standalones, but it's supposed to be intertwined where, you know, we go through like the best friend circles and everybody gets their own romance and everything like that. So I am super excited for the rest of this series. Again, go pick up this book. Next, I read Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. This was my first H.D. Carlton book. I actually read the trigger warnings for this one and I decided to read it anyways. And I rated this one a 3.5 stars. I just really wasn't a fan of the main male character throughout the majority of the book. Their relationship was actually really toxic, and I just wasn't really that big of a fan of that. Like, I understand it was supposed to be like a dark romance and everything. I just still couldn't bring myself to like the main male character after majority of the book not liking him because of the way he was acting. The plot itself, aside from the romance, was so freaking good. I was not expecting it to go in the way that it went. The synopsis on the back is very, very vague, so other than the romance aspect of it, you don't really know what direction the plot is going to go in. I was assuming it was only going to be about the romance just because the synopsis was so vague. The other aspects of the plot that didn't have to do with the romance, I think, are what really made the book. Because if it would have been just about the romance, I probably would have given it a lot lower rating than what I gave it. But the other aspects of the plot, I feel like, are what saved the book. Next, I read Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This was a YA fantasy, and I just kind of randomly picked this up. I know I heard Haley Pham talk about this book. I know she raves about it. She talks about it all the time. I don't really read YA like that anymore. It's not really my favorite genre, but I actually really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it a 3.75 stars. It was really entertaining. I really liked the world that was created by the author. It was just super cute, super fun. I'm actually so surprised and so glad the plot went in the way that it did. It was literally so good. It ended on a cliffhanger, and I'm just so excited to get the next two and read them. Like, literally so good, so cute, and I loved it. It was so cute. It was just a cute little YA story. Next, I read Carrie Soda Is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I gave this book a 4 stars. It was literally so good. I loved it so much. I love the way Taylor Jenkins Reid writes her characters. They just seem so realistic, and it really just sucks you in. I would say she writes her characters in a somewhat morally gray way, but it's realistic. It's realistic to how real morally gray people would act in real life, and I think that's part of the reason why I also love it so much, because you always feel some sort of conflict when it comes to the main character, but at the end of the day you still end up loving them because she writes them in a really human way. Like, yeah, people make mistakes, but we're here and we're doing the best that we can. Next, I read Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This was my first Christina Lauren book. Even though I've been reading for 2 years now, I still feel like I'm a baby reader. Like, I have not been in the game for super long, so a lot of these books that I've read are my firsts by those authors. I loved the main female character. I loved the main male character. Like, I loved their relationship together. It was a past and present tense point of view throughout the book, and I loved them when they were kids, and I loved them in the present. I haven't read a romance like this in a while where it's just so endearing. There was a time in the book where I wasn't sure if I still was a fan of the main male character, which is Elliot. I really appreciate the 11 years in passing to where they could go off on their own, like do their own thing, like somewhat try to heal and then come back together and finish healing together. I loved it so much, and I want to read more by Christina Lauren. Next, I read The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. This was my first Lucy Foley book. I rated this book a 4 stars. I really feel like she based it more on the psychological and strategic aspect. It wasn't so action-packed, but it was still interesting because we were getting to see how everybody's minds worked throughout having to go through, you know, this thing that's happening. The best way I can describe it, I was actually thinking about it the other day, and the best way I can describe it is that it kind of gives off like soap opera vibes, but like a good soap opera. The drama, the tea, like everybody's motives, like that's what it was giving, and I think that was the part that was the most interesting about it. I will say it was a little bit tough for me to get through. It took me a little bit longer to get through. I still found it super interesting. It just took me a little bit longer to get through just because there wasn't something always like going on that was pulling me back in, you know? It was kind of like the politics aspect of like a fantasy. Like, it's interesting, but like you're like, okay, like let's pick up the pace a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But again, overall, I really still enjoyed it. Okay. Last book, y'all. Actually just finished this book yesterday. I read A Court of the Vampire Queen by Katie Robert. I love Neon Gods by Katie Roberts, so I really actually kind of had high expectations for this. I'm gonna be honest, y'all, I am going to rate this book a 2.75 stars, and I was actually kind of really disappointed by that. This is a reverse harem about a girl who is sent to live with a vampire to, you know, be a food source and then bear children with that vampire. They end up fleeing and bonding with two other vampires, and they end up wanting to overthrow her dad and take over his compound. In theory, it sounded like such a good story, but I want to say 90 to 95% of the whole book was just spice. And like I said, I love spice, and the spice in this was actually so good. But this is almost a 500-page book, and after a while I just got kind of tired of it. The plot itself sounded really, really good. Like, oh, like, okay, like, you know, we're about to overthrow somebody. Like, you know, it sounded really good in theory. The whole time the story was building up to this quote unquote epic battle between her and her dad. And when I got to that part of the story, which was again like the last 10 to 20 pages, the epic battle lasted maybe like a page and a half. I was kind of really expecting a little bit more from that side of the plot, but the romance part of it was actually really good. I really enjoyed it. I definitely feel like the book could have been a lot shorter than it was. Like, I definitely feel like it didn't need to be almost 500 pages long. It wasn't really a bad book. I was just a little disappointed because it felt pretty anticlimactic. So if you would like to check this out, go ahead. Like, again, the spice was super, super good. So if you are a spicy girl, if you are a hot chili pepper girl, you might like this a lot. Those were all 21 books that I have read so far this year. I gave myself a goal of 50. We have 4 months left to hit it. We'll see if that happens. We're almost, what? We're a little bit over, wait. I can't do math. We're almost halfway there. So, and I'm in the middle of reading 2 more books right now. So we'll see if we can hit it in time. If not, that's okay. If we do, that's awesome too. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see. I am still finding my way around the book world, around booktube, around book talk. So again, if y'all have any recommendations for me, just let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this mid-year wrap-up. That wasn't really a mid-year wrap-up, but I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys are so fun, so fresh, so cool, and I love you. And I guess I'll see you guys whenever I see you guys next. Bye!